My name is Sophia, and if you're anything like me, managing money hasn't always been easy. I know what it's like to feel overwhelmed by bills and impulsive spending, thinking there's no way to save enough to make a real difference. But here's the good news. By the end of this year, you could be in a completely different financial situation. Today, I'm going to show you how to double your savings in 2025 using strategies that are simple, practical, and most importantly, effective. But before we dive in, let me share a quick personal story. A few years ago, I was struggling to keep my finances in order. No matter how hard I tried, it felt like I could never get ahead. Every month, I'd watch my paycheck disappear into bills, groceries, and that little treat yourself moment that ended up costing way more than it should have. Sound familiar? I've been there, and I'm here to tell you there's a better way. In this video, I'll walk you through the exact steps I use to transform my financial habits. These aren't magic tricks or get-rich-quick schemes. Instead, they're practical tools you can implement right away to take control of your money and start building a future you're proud of. So grab a notebook, take some notes, and get ready. By the end of this video, you'll not only know how to double your savings, but also have the confidence to make it happen. And hey, if this resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get started. It all started on a chilly January morning, the kind that makes you want to stay wrapped up in blankets and forget the world exists. But on that day, I was determined. I sat down at my kitchen table, a steaming cup of coffee in one hand and a blank notebook in the other. The new year had just begun, and like many people, I'd made a resolution. This was the year I'd finally get my finances under control. No more excuses, no more procrastination. This time I was serious. But let's be real for a moment. Setting financial goals can feel daunting. I looked at my notebook and thought, where do I even begin? My mind immediately jumped to the challenges ahead: rent, utilities, groceries, a car payment, and let's not forget those unexpected expenses that always seem to pop up at the worst possible moment. Then there were the small, seemingly harmless habits, like grabbing coffee on the way to work or ordering takeout when I was too tired to cook. They didn't feel like a big deal in the moment, but they added up quickly. As I stared at the blank page, I started to feel that familiar wave of doubt creeping in. Maybe I should just give up. I thought, I'll never save enough to make a difference anyway. But deep down, I knew that kind of thinking was part of the problem. If I didn't start somewhere, I'd never make any progress. So, I took a deep breath, sipped my coffee, and wrote down the first thing that came to mind. Track every dollar. That one simple phrase became my mantra. I decided that before making any big changes, I needed to understand where my money was going. Over the next few weeks, I kept a detailed record of every expense. Yes, every single one. From my rent payment to a $2 candy bar, it all went into my notebook. At first it felt tedious, but as the days passed, something amazing happened. Patterns started to emerge. I could see exactly how much I was spending on necessities, like rent and groceries, versus non-essentials, like dining out or buying clothes I didn't really need. One thing became painfully clear. I wasn't broke. I was mismanaging my money. For example, I realized I was spending almost $300 a month on takeout alone. That's $3,600 a year. Seeing that number in black and white was a wake-up call. I wasn't failing because I didn't have enough money. I was failing because I wasn't using it wisely. But tracking expenses was just the beginning. I knew I needed a system to help me stay consistent. That's when I came across a simple yet powerful concept, the 50-30-20 rule. It's a budgeting method that divides your income into 3 categories: 50% for needs, things like rent, utilities, and groceries; 30% for wants, entertainment, dining out, and non-essential purchases; 20% for savings, building an emergency fund, paying off debt, or investing; At first glance, it seemed almost too simple. Could something so basic really make a difference? But I was willing to try anything at that point. I grabbed my notebook and started plugging in my own numbers. Here's what I discovered. If I allocated 50% of my income to needs, 30% to wants, and 20% to savings, I'd not only cover all my expenses, but also set aside a solid chunk of money each month. The math worked, but I knew the real challenge would be sticking to the plan. Before fully committing to the rule, I decided to test it out for 1 month. I created a rough budget and categorized my expenses accordingly. To my surprise, the hardest part wasn't cutting back on wants. It was redefining what I considered a need. For example, I'd always thought of my daily coffee shop visits as a necessity, but when I added up the cost, I realized it was a luxury I could easily replace by brewing coffee at home. Over the next few weeks, I started making small, intentional changes. I unsubscribed from a few streaming services I hardly used, started meal prepping on Sundays to avoid takeout, and even found ways to reduce my grocery bill by shopping smarter. Each adjustment felt like a tiny victory, and those victories began to add up. By the end of the month, I had saved more than I thought possible, and for the first time in years, I felt hopeful about my financial future. Looking back, I can see that this initial step, tracking every dollar and testing the 50-30-20 rule, was the foundation for everything that came next. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it, and it set the stage for the real transformation that was about to unfold. As I started diving deeper into the 50-30-20 rule, I realized just how powerful it could be. At its core, this method is about giving every dollar you earn a purpose. Instead of letting your money slip through your fingers without direction, you allocate it intentionally into 3 simple categories: needs, wants, and savings. The beauty of this approach is its simplicity. It doesn't require complex spreadsheets or hours of number crunching. It's straightforward, manageable, and effective. Let's break it down. The first 50% of your income goes to cha needs. These are the essentials, things you absolutely cannot live without. For me, that included rent, utilities, groceries, and transportation. If you're someone who has debt payments, those also fall into this category. These expenses are non-negotiable, which makes it easy to identify them. The challenge is keeping them within the 50% limit. If you're spending more than half your income on needs, it might be time to reassess things like housing costs or find ways to cut back on utilities. The next 30% is for at-once. Now this is where things get tricky. It's easy to convince yourself that a lot of your wants are actually needs. I had to learn that while dining out, going to the movies, or upgrading to the latest tech might feel important, they're not essential. This category is about treating yourself without going overboard. It's a way to enjoy life while staying in control of your finances. And trust me, learning to differentiate between wants and needs is a skill that takes practice, but it's a game changer. Finally, the remaining 20% goes to our savings. This is where the magic happens. Whether you're building an emergency fund, paying off debt, or investing for the future, this portion of your income is what helps you grow financially. For me, this was the most exciting part. Every dollar I saved felt like a step closer to my goals. And the best part? Seeing that savings account balance grow each month was incredibly motivating. To give you a real-life example, let's say you earn $3,000 a month after taxes. Using the 50-30-20 rule, $1,500 would go toward needs, $900 toward wants, and $600 toward savings. At first glance, it seems manageable, right? But the real challenge lies in sticking to these limits. And that's where tracking your spending becomes so important. I decided to approach this method like an experiment. For 1 month, I tracked every dollar I spent and categorized it into needs, wants, or savings. It was eye-opening, to say the least. I quickly realized that I had been overspending in the wants category by a lot. Things like takeout meals, impulse buys, and subscription services were eating away at money that could have gone towards savings. It was a wake-up call, but also an opportunity to course correct. The first step I took was setting clear boundaries. For example, I limited dining out to once a week and started cooking more meals at home. I also canceled a few subscriptions that I wasn't using regularly. These small changes added up quickly and made it easier to stay within the 30% limit for wants. The key was finding a balance that worked for me, cutting back without feeling deprived. On the flip side, I looked for ways to optimize my spending in the needs category. I shopped around for better deals on insurance, switched to a more affordable phone plan, and made an effort to save on utilities. By being more mindful of my energy usage, these adjustments helped free up more of my income for savings, which was my ultimate goal. What I loved most about the 50-30-20 rule was how adaptable it was. It wasn't about following strict rules or feeling guilty about spending money. Instead, it was about creating a framework that allowed me to enjoy life while still making progress toward my financial goals. And the best part? It worked. By the end of the first month, I had managed to save more than I ever thought possible, all without feeling like I was sacrificing too much. This method gave me clarity and control over my finances. And for the first time in years, I felt empowered. I wasn't just hoping to save money. I had a plan, and that plan was already showing results. But the real transformation didn't happen overnight. It was the consistent, month-to-month application of this strategy that truly made a difference. And as I continued to refine and adjust my budget, I discovered even more ways to make the 50-30-20 rule work for me. That's what I'll share with you next. The moment I committed to the 50-30-20 rule, I knew it wasn't going to be just another budgeting experiment. It had to be a lifestyle change. Tracking my expenses and understanding my spending habits was the first step, but applying the rule consistently was where the real challenge began. It wasn't about perfection. It was about progress. To start, I took my monthly income and broke it into 3 categories. As the rule suggested, for me, this meant allocating 50% of my income, or $1,500, to needs like rent, utilities, groceries, and transportation. The next 30%, or $900, was reserved for wants, and the final 20%, $600, was dedicated to savings. Seeing these numbers on paper felt empowering. It gave me a clear roadmap for my finances. But as straightforward as it seemed, I quickly realized that sticking to these limits required effort and discipline. The first area I tackled was our needs. I began by reviewing my rent and utility bills to see if there were any opportunities to cut costs. While moving to a cheaper apartment wasn't an option at the time, I did find small ways to save on utilities. For example, I started turning off lights when I wasn't using them, unplugging devices, and setting my thermostat a little lower in the winter. These changes seemed minor, but over time, they added up. I also looked at my grocery spending and realized I could save a significant amount by meal planning and buying in bulk. Instead of shopping multiple times a week and picking up random items, I made a list, stuck to it, and avoided impulse purchases. When it came to wants, I had to be honest with myself about what truly brought value to my life. Eating out was one of my biggest weaknesses. I loved the convenience, but I knew it was draining my budget. To strike a balance, I decided to limit myself to 1 takeout meal per week. This small change not only saved me money, but also made dining out feel more like a treat rather than a habit. I also took a hard look at my subscriptions, streaming services, gym memberships, and other recurring expenses that I wasn't fully utilizing. By canceling or downgrading some of these services, I was able to free up more money for savings. Now let's talk about the most exciting part, savings. This is where the magic of the 50-30-20 rule really came to life for me. The $600 I allocated to savings each month became my safety net. I split this amount between an emergency fund and a high-yield savings account, ensuring that my money was not only safe, but also growing over time. Watching that balance increase month after month was incredibly motivating. It made me realize that saving wasn't about depriving myself. It was about creating freedom and opportunities for the future. One of the biggest lessons I learned during this process was the importance of flexibility. Life is unpredictable, and there were months when unexpected expenses threw off my budget. Instead of getting discouraged, I reminded myself that the 50-30-20 rule was a guide, not a rigid set of rules. If I went over in one category, I adjusted the others to compensate. For example, if my utility bill was higher than expected, I'd cut back on dining out that month. This approach kept me on track without feeling overly restricted. To keep myself accountable, I created a system for reviewing my budget at the end of each month. I'd sit down with my notebook and track how much I spent in each category. If I noticed any areas where I had overspent, I made a note and brainstormed ways to do better the following month. This habit of regular reflection helped me stay mindful of my financial goals and continuously improve my budgeting skills. As the months went by, I started to notice a shift, not just in my finances, but in my mindset. I was no longer living paycheck to paycheck or feeling anxious about money. Instead, I felt in control. I was making intentional choices about how I spent and saved, and it felt empowering. Each dollar I saved was a step closer to the life I wanted to create. But the journey didn't stop there. I began to explore additional ways to maximize the impact of the 50-30-20 rule. For example, I started using cashback apps and credit card rewards programs to get more value out of my purchases. I also looked into ways to increase my income, such as taking on freelance work or selling items I no longer needed. These extra earnings allowed me to boost my savings even further, accelerating my progress. One of the most rewarding parts of this journey was sharing it with others. As I started to see results, I couldn't help but talk about it with friends and family. To my surprise, many of them were inspired to try the 50-30-20 rule for themselves. We began sharing tips and supporting each other, creating a sense of community around our financial goals. It was a reminder that personal finance doesn't have to be a solitary journey. It's something we can learn and grow from together. Looking back, applying the 50-30-20 rule wasn't just about creating a budget. It was about creating a new mindset. It taught me the value of intentionality, discipline, and adaptability. It showed me that small, consistent changes could lead to big results. And most importantly, it gave me the confidence to believe in my ability to achieve financial freedom. As I continued on this path, I discovered even more strategies to save and grow my money, which I'll share with you in the next chapter. Because while the 50-30-20 rule is a fantastic foundation, there's always more to learn and new ways to improve. Once I had fully embraced the 50-30-20 rule, the impact on my financial life became undeniable. The changes were no longer just about cutting expenses or tracking every dollar. They became a lifestyle. And as I stuck with the plan, month after month, I started to see the long-term benefits unfold in ways I hadn't anticipated. The most immediate benefit was the sense of control I gained over my finances. No longer was I blindsided by unexpected expenses or living paycheck to paycheck. With 20% of my income going straight into savings each month, I had a growing safety net to fall back on. This cushion gave me peace of mind and reduced a lot of the stress I used to associate with money. For example, when my car unexpectedly needed repairs one month, I didn't panic or scramble to find the funds. Instead, I dipped into my emergency savings, knowing it was there specifically for situations like this. Another major benefit was the clarity the rule brought to my spending habits. Before using this system, I often felt guilty about spending money on things I enjoyed, like dining out or buying new clothes. But the 50-30-20 rule reframed my perspective. It allowed me to allocate 30% of my income for once guilt-free. Knowing that my needs and savings were already covered, I could enjoy those treats without constantly second-guessing myself. It's amazing how much lighter life feels when you know you're spending responsibly. But the benefits didn't stop there. Over time, the consistency of saving 20% of my income began to compound. Watching my savings account grow each month was incredibly motivating. By the end of the first year, I had saved enough to cover 3 months of living expenses, my first true emergency fund. This achievement felt monumental. It was proof that small, consistent actions really do add up over time. Beyond the financial aspect, this journey also brought emotional and mental benefits. Knowing that I had a plan and was actively working toward my goals gave me a sense of empowerment. I no longer felt like money was something that controlled me. Instead, I was in control. This shift in mindset spilled over into other areas of my life. I became more disciplined and intentional, not just with my finances, but also with my time, energy, and relationships. One unexpected benefit of the 50-30-20 rule was how it improved my ability to set and achieve goals. Saving money is essentially about delayed gratification, choosing to forego short-term pleasures for long-term rewards. As I practiced this with my finances, I realized I could apply the same principle to other areas. Whether it was working toward a fitness goal or pursuing a career milestone, the discipline I built through budgeting became a transferable skill. Of course, there were challenges along the way. Life doesn't always go according to plan, and there were months when sticking to the rule felt nearly impossible. Unexpected expenses would crop up, or I'd be tempted to splurge on something outside my budget. But instead of seeing these moments as failures, I viewed them as opportunities to learn and adapt. For example, during the holiday season, my spending on gifts pushed my wants category over its limit. Rather than beating myself up, I adjusted my savings temporarily to balance things out and made a plan to get back on track the following month. Another key takeaway was the importance of revisiting and refining the plan over time. As my income grew, so did my savings potential. By maintaining the 50-30-20 structure, I was able to increase the amount I saved each month without feeling like I was depriving myself. This gradual growth not only boosted my financial security, but also allowed me to start thinking about larger goals, like investing and planning for retirement. One of the most rewarding aspects of this journey was the sense of stability it brought to my life. There's a certain freedom that comes with knowing you're financially secure. It allowed me to take risks I might not have considered before, like exploring new career opportunities or investing in personal development. These were things I'd always wanted to do, but had put off because of financial uncertainty. By this point, the 50-30-20 rule wasn't just a budgeting tool, it was a foundation for a better life. It had taught me how to manage my money, yes, but it had also given me the confidence to dream bigger and plan for the future. And while the rule itself is simple, its impact can be profound when applied consistently. As I continued to refine my financial strategy, I started exploring additional ways to maximize my savings and grow my wealth. These strategies weren't about reinventing the wheel, but rather building on the solid foundation I'd created. In the next chapter, I'll dive into some of these methods, sharing tips and insights that can help you take your savings to the next level. While the 50-30-20 rule provided a solid foundation for managing my finances, I quickly realized there were additional strategies that could amplify my savings and help me build wealth even faster. These weren't about making drastic changes, but rather finding ways to optimize my spending and maximize every dollar. If you're ready to take your financial game to the next level, here's what worked for me. The first strategy I embraced was leveraging cashback programs and rewards. Every time I spent money, I wanted to make sure I was getting something in return. I started by signing up for a cashback credit card that rewarded me for everyday purchases like groceries, gas, and dining out. But here's the key. I treated my credit card like a debit card. I only spent what I had in my budget, and I paid off the balance in full every month to avoid interest charges. By the end of the year, I had earned several $100s in cash back, which I funneled directly into my savings account. Next, I discovered the power of negotiation. It might sound intimidating, but negotiating your bills and recurring expenses can save you a significant amount of money. For example, I called my internet provider and asked if they had any promotions or discounts available. To my surprise, they lowered my monthly bill by $15 just for asking. I applied the same approach to my phone plan, car insurance, and even subscriptions. These small reductions added up over time and freed up more money for savings. Another game-changing strategy was embracing the art of minimalism. Now, I'm not talking about getting rid of everything you own and living out of a backpack. For me, minimalism was about being intentional with my purchases. Before buying anything, I'd ask myself, do I really need this? Will it add value to my life? If the answer was no, I didn't buy it. This mindset shift helped me cut back on impulse purchases and focus on what truly mattered. One of the most surprising ways I saved money was by meal prepping. It sounds simple, but preparing meals at home instead of eating out made a huge difference. I'd dedicate a few hours on Sundays to cook for the week, which not only saved me time, but also significantly reduced my grocery bill. Plus, I found that I was eating healthier and wasting less food. To make it fun, I experimented with new recipes and even got friends involved in meal prep sessions. Another area where I found savings was through decluttering and selling unused items. I went through my closet, kitchen, and storage spaces, looking for things I no longer used or needed. From clothes to gadgets to old furniture, I sold everything I could on platforms like Facebook Marketplace and eBay. The extra cash I earned went straight into my savings account, and the process of decluttering felt incredibly freeing. I also started exploring passive income opportunities. This doesn't mean you need to invest thousands of dollars up front. There are simple ways to earn passive income, like renting out a spare room on Airbnb, selling digital products online, or even starting a blog that generates ad revenue over time. For me, I began by selling an ebook I'd written years ago on a niche topic. It didn't make me rich overnight, but the small, consistent income streams added up and gave my savings a nice boost. As I implemented these strategies, I realized the importance of tracking and celebrating progress. Every month, I'd review my savings and spending, looking for new areas to optimize. If I managed to save more than my 20% goal, I'd reward myself. Nothing extravagant, just a little treat to acknowledge my efforts. This positive reinforcement kept me motivated and made the process of saving money feel rewarding rather than restrictive. One of the most impactful lessons I learned was the value of saying no. Whether it was skipping a night out with friends or turning down an unnecessary purchase, saying no became a way of protecting my financial goals. At first, it felt uncomfortable, but over time, I realized that every no to something I didn't truly need was a yes to my future. And honestly, my true friends understood and supported my choices. Another strategy I adopted was creating a specific, actionable goals. Instead of just saying, I want to save more money, I set concrete targets. For example, I aim to save $10,000 in a year for a down payment on a house. Breaking that goal into monthly milestones made it feel achievable, and each time I hit a target, I felt a sense of accomplishment. Lastly, I educated myself about investing. While saving money is crucial, growing that money is equally important. I started small, opening a retirement account and contributing what I could. Then I branched out into index funds and ETFs, which allowed me to diversify my investments without needing to be a financial expert. Learning about compound interest and seeing my investments grow over time was both exciting and empowering. Looking back, these additional strategies didn't feel like sacrifices. They felt like opportunities. Each one contributed to my financial progress in unique ways, and together, they accelerated my journey toward financial freedom. The best part, you don't have to implement all of these strategies at once. Start with one or two, see what works for you, and build from there. As I continued to refine my approach, I began to realize that saving money wasn't just about cutting back. It was about creating a life aligned with my values and goals. And that's what I'll explore in the next chapter. A practical, interactive challenge to help you put these strategies into action and start seeing results for yourself. Now that we've covered the 50-30-20 rule and explored additional strategies to amplify your savings, it's time to take action. One of the most important steps in any financial journey is moving from learning to doing. And that's exactly what we'll focus on in this chapter, a practical, interactive challenge designed to help you apply these concepts in your own life and start seeing real results. The first step in this challenge is to assess your current financial situation. Take a moment to calculate your monthly income after taxes. Write this number down. It's your starting point. Next, track all of your expenses for the past month. If you've never done this before, don't worry. Just go through your bank statements, receipts, or even credit card bills. Break these expenses into 3 categories: needs, wants, and savings. Once you've categorized everything, calculate the percentage of your income that each category represents. How close are you to the 50-30-20 guideline? If your spending doesn't align with the rule, don't stress. That's exactly why we're doing this exercise, to identify areas for improvement. For instance, if you're spending 60% of your income on needs, it's a sign that you may need to cut back or find ways to optimize those expenses. Or, if your savings percentage is lower than 20%, we'll work on strategies to increase it. The next step is to create a 1-month action plan. Using what you've learned, set specific goals for each category. Here's an example. Needs: reduce grocery expenses by $50 by meal prepping. Wants: limit dining out to twice a month, saving $100. Savings: increase monthly savings by $150 by reallocating money from wants. These small actionable steps are the foundation for building better financial habits. Write them down and keep them somewhere visible, on your fridge, in your planner, or even as a note on your phone. Now, let's talk about the fun part, the 30-day challenge. For the next month, I challenge you to stick to your new budget and track every single dollar you spend. Yes, every dollar. Use a notebook, spreadsheet, or budgeting app to log your expenses daily. The goal isn't to be perfect, but to build awareness and accountability. At the end of the 30 days, revisit your action plan. Did you stick to your goals? What worked well and what didn't? This reflection will help you adjust and improve for the next month. To make this challenge even more engaging, I encourage you to share your progress. Talk about your experience with a friend, family member, or even in the comments of this video. Accountability is powerful, and having someone to share your wins and struggles with can make all the difference. You might even inspire others to join you on this journey. Here's another interactive twist. Visualize your goals. Take a moment to think about what doubling your savings could mean for you. Is it building an emergency fund, taking a dream vacation, buying your first home? Whatever it is, write it down and keep that vision in mind throughout the challenge. If you're feeling creative, make a vision board with images and quotes that inspire you. Seeing your goals every day can be a great motivator. As you go through this challenge, remember to celebrate small wins. Did you stick to your meal prep plan for a week? Celebrate. Did you save an extra $50 by cutting back on wants? That's worth acknowledging. These little victories add up and keep you motivated to stay on track. One of the most valuable lessons you'll learn during this challenge is that budgeting isn't about deprivation. It's about empowerment. It's about taking control of your finances so you can live the life you want without constant stress or guilt. By the end of the 30 days, you'll not only have a better understanding of your spending habits, but also a tangible plan for improving them. Before we wrap up, let me leave you with a final piece of advice. Progress, not perfection. There will be days when you slip up or feel tempted to abandon your budget. That's okay. What matters is that you keep going. Financial success is a marathon, not a sprint. Each small step you take brings you closer to your goals, and every effort counts. At the end of this challenge, I'd love to hear how it went for you. What did you learn? What surprised you? Share your experience in the comments, or reach out to me directly. I'm here to support you every step of the way. In the next chapter, we'll tie everything together and reflect on the journey we've taken. I'll share some final thoughts and leave you with an inspiring message to carry forward. Let's finish strong. As we come to the end of this journey, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've covered and the steps you're now equipped to take. You've learned how to transform your financial habits, double your savings, and build a future that aligns with your goals. And most importantly, you've learned that financial success isn't about making huge, unsustainable sacrifices. It's about consistency, intentionality, and the courage to take control of your life. Throughout this video, we explored how the 50-30-20 rule serves as a simple yet powerful framework for budgeting. It helps you create balance by allocating your income to your needs, wants, and savings. But we didn't stop there. Together, we delved into practical strategies, tracking expenses, negotiating bills, cutting unnecessary spending, and even earning cash back that amplify your ability to save and grow your wealth. Every single strategy we discussed is something you can implement starting today. But let's be honest, change is never easy. It requires effort, discipline, and a willingness to step outside your comfort zone. At times, you might feel overwhelmed or discouraged. Maybe you'll have a month where you don't hit your savings target, or unexpected expenses throw off your budget. That's okay. Progress isn't linear, and setbacks are part of the process. What matters is that you keep showing up. Each small step you take is a step forward, and every effort brings you closer to the life you want to create. Now imagine what doubling your savings in 2025 could mean for you. Maybe it's the freedom to pursue a passion project, the security of knowing you have an emergency fund, or the excitement of planning for a big milestone, like buying a home or starting a business. Whatever your vision is, hold on to it. Let it guide you as you navigate the ups and downs of your financial journey. Because when you have a clear purpose, saving money becomes more than just a task. It becomes a way to invest in your future. Before we part ways, let me leave you with a simple but powerful reminder. Your financial journey is uniquely yours. Avoid comparing yourself to others or feeling like you're falling behind. Focus on your goals, your progress, and the steps you're taking to improve. Whether you're saving $10 or $1,000 a month, every dollar matters. Celebrate each milestone, no matter how small, and remember that you're building something meaningful. As we wrap up, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey. It takes courage to confront your finances and take control of your future, and the fact that you're here shows that you're ready to make a change. I believe in you and your ability to achieve your goals, and I hope this video has inspired you to take that next step. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend or loved one who might benefit from it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you can continue learning and growing alongside this community. Together, we're redefining what financial freedom looks like, one step at a time. So, what's next for you? Are you ready to take on the 30-day challenge, to track your expenses, set your goals, and see what's possible when you approach your finances with intention? I'd love to hear your thoughts. So drop a comment below and let me know what you're excited to achieve. Remember, this is just the beginning. Your future is in your hands, and I can't wait to see what you accomplish. Here's to doubling your savings, taking control of your financial future, and making 2025 your most successful year yet. Let's make it happen together.